Big Friendly Swim podcast, and I'm Ahmed, the Big Friendly host. Today we're sitting down with a World Championship team member and Indiana Hoosier, Mariah Denigan. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Did I pronounce your last name right?
Yes, then again.
Awesome. So Mariah, talk to me. We're gonna jump right into things. Talk to me about the differences in both pool and open water swimming. I was talking with Michael Briniger earlier in December, and he was talking about like the differences for him. But I'm wondering if you could talk about like how do you train for both, and how often do you actually get to practice in open water? I know there's not a lot of ocean in Indiana.
No, definitely not. Luckily though, my coach lives on a lake in Indiana. So whenever it's summer, we get out there once a week and we're able to train. And even when it starts to get a little bit warmer, I'll just put a wetsuit on and train there. But as far as like week to week training, especially because I don't live by an ocean or like in warmer climate, it's pretty much the same. Like I train with the regular distance kids here at IU, and I just think one we have a great distance group here, and I do love training at IU. And like the regular week to week basis, I mean, it's the same thing. While open water and pool swimming are very different when it comes to racing, the training is very similar. And I just train a little bit extra in a week in order to get a little bit more yardage in.
So talk to me about the differences in that open water like training, but specifically about the competition. So like what's the is it this is something that I only recently have been learning about, been listening to like Brennan Gravely talk about it and Michael Briniger was talking to me about it. But talk to me about like just an open water meet, like how things are run, the process of like each race happening and like how long the whole event takes.
So the race itself, 10K, it takes just under 2 hours every time. And as far as like race prep goes, there's a specific mindset that you have to take into open water racing. And that is you have to be able to go with the flow, change, adapt, and because there are a lot more things in open water swimming that you can't control. Like if the weather is bad or there's waves, like you could practice a course 10 times and there be no waves, and then you wake up on race day and there's waves. So you have to learn to adapt to that and adapt to the conditions, adapt to the environment, and really just be able to like keep your emotions. I feel like it's not as high strung as pool competition can be because there's a lot more things that you can control within pool competitions. But with open water, it's very much so go with the flow and deal with the environment the morning of. So
You know, it's something and that just gets me thinking about it. It's something I've noticed across like competition in all distances. Typically distance swimmers seem to be more relaxed and laid back, and that probably comes as a byproduct of just in open water there's not as much stuff that you can control, so you have to relax and just go with what's going on.
right. And even I did a race in actually Doha, Qatar. A This was in 2019, and we didn't know if it was going to be a 4 lap course or a 5 lap course until like literally 15 minutes before we dove in to race. And so it's just one of those things where we were sitting around for 2 hours just like waiting for the conditions to be called because the officials, like, it was cold. We didn't know if it was going to be a wetsuit race or a tech suit race until about 40 minutes before we were supposed to be in the ready room. And so when it comes to pool swimming, that's like not something that you're ever really dealing with on race day. Like you typically know what's going to happen, but with open water, you have to be willing to like deal with those little changes.
So speaking of Doha and the World Championships that are coming up there, and probably this interview is going to be posted actually probably while the on the day of you competing in. I think it's the day of the 10K is when this is going to be going up.
Yeah.
But speaking of worlds, I actually learned this from Michael Breniger last month. He told me that these world championships will serve as qualifying for the Olympics, which
Yes.
I was not aware of. So that gives another layer of importance for open water swimmers.
Right.
But beyond that, how have you structured your training plan over the course of this next like 6 months to fit in world championships, probably NCAA's and Olympic trials?
Yeah, so that was a big thing before the season started because I knew I had already qualified for 2024 Worlds and knew that it was the Olympic qualifier. So, because I had that extra time, especially like the girls did, because Katie and I had both already qualified for Worlds, taking up the two 10K spots. Whereas the men, on the other hand, they still didn't know until December when we raced in Portugal. So I was able to plan my season around Worlds basically. And so I sat down with my coaches before the season started. And I felt that what was best for me was to be able to train more this past semester. So in the fall semester, I didn't do any classes. I took what's called a waiver semester. So I didn't do any classes this past semester. And then currently I'm only enrolled in 9 credit hours, which is like a part of the waiver. So I can lessen my school workload while still being able to like train just as hard in the pool. And then I'll only be competing collegiately this year in Big Tens and NCAAs. So I kind of structured that so that I could get more yardage in. I stayed extra, like I trained extra and stayed on my own for um, like a couple practices a week in order to get some extra yardage in for open water training. But everything this year has been very I'm fortunate that my coaches have worked with me on this Olympic year to be Olympic minded and not necessarily NCAA minded. And while NCAAs will come and after Worlds we'll be focusing on that, I am just trying to get to Worlds right now and accomplish my goal of making the Olympic team. So
You know, it's funny. I actually chatted with the head coach at Indiana, Ray, about a year ago this week, and he kind of echoed that mindset of trying to make sure everybody's needs and everybody's goals are met while
yes,
balancing like the many different like stories and backgrounds that people have on the Indiana team.
yeah,
So describe to me, this was something that while I was researching for this interview that I thought would be kind of fun to talk about. I with all of the swimming nerd knowledge that I have, I was not aware that there was open water relays.
yes,
That sounds
yeah,
so fun. Can you just talk to me like how
yeah.
does that work? Like how long does everybody swim for?
Yeah, so at this Worlds, we'll be competing the 4x1500 mixed relay. So it's a strategy thing, depending on like the order, the same as like any mixed relay is when you're seeing that competed at Worlds. But so it's two guys, two girls, and we all swim a 1500. And it's usually they set it up to where it's a 1500 meter lap. And so the first person always just dives off the dock and does their one lap, goes through the gate, and then you touch the dock and your teammate is standing there. And once they see you touch, then they dive in and do the same thing. And then when it comes to the fourth person, they end up hitting the touchpad instead of the dock to stop the time.
That's awesome. I don't know
Yes.
how I had never like seen any videos or anything of that before. That's like
Yes.
it's awesome that like we have a 1500 in the pool and then in open water you do a whole 1500 for a relay.
Yes. It's honestly so fun because you're taking a bunch of swimmers who aren't typically on relays. Like I haven't been on a relay since age group swimming. And so it's been fun for me to kind of get that relay experience as well as like doing it in an like sport that I love. Like I love open water swimming so much. So for them to give an opportunity to one do a relay and two make it fun in the open ocean, it's great. I love it.
It's unfortunate that there isn't like more relay opportunities for distance swimmers.
Yeah. Yes, I think that should be the next event is a 4x1650 relay in the NCAA. Like that'd be
Oh yeah,
so fun.
they'd
Yeah.
set aside a whole day for that and take that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Mariah, you've been around on the senior national team for a few years now, and on the junior national team for few years before that. This is a bit of a loaded question. I'm wondering if you can talk about your experiences on the junior national team and the senior national team, and then just kind of chart for me the time between your first junior national trip all the way into leading how like the pandemic in 2020 affected your first experiences on the senior national team.
Yeah, so it was a little bit different for me because when I made my first junior national team, I had also made the national team that year for the 800 freestyle and so my first trip was in 2018 and it was a junior national team trip in Fiji. And so that was for junior Pan Packs. And then I had also qualified for the Junior World Open Water Championships in Israel. And it was 2 weeks after Junior Pan Packs. So that was amazing. And that was something that my club coach put on my radar. Like when I was 13, I had no idea that junior national team was a thing and that you could travel the world like just swimming. And so when my coach put that on my radar, I was like, wow, like I can really like accomplish this. And so I went into Irvine and I swam the 800 and then ended up making the national team. And it was one of those things where I just kind of jumped over the junior team level just a little bit because like I did get that junior Pan Packs experience, but I never got to go on like a junior national team like training camp like at the OTC or anything like that. And so the day that I qualified for the junior Pan Packs and the 800 free, I also qualified for Pan Ams, which was a senior national level meet for like at the same competition in 2019. So in 2019, that was my first senior level competition for Pan American Games in Peru. And so I kind of did both within the same year. So that's why mine looks a little bit different than other people's, like the typical route of like going through the junior team and then making the national team. So yeah, it was a little bit different. But then once COVID kind of hit, I was super stressed out because like trials weren't necessarily canceled yet. And I had just gone through a coaching change. So I went through, I was at a new club team and I was kind of stressed with that. But then once I realized that everyone was in the same boat as me, like I was texting all of my junior national friends and they weren't able to like train. So once I kind of put that into perspective, I was able to chill and kind of like enjoy my time with my family. I know it sounds weird because a lot of people think that like and it was awful for a lot of people like COVID like it was horrific for the entire like at nation as a whole, but for me it was kind of nice to like be able to like see my family members more than I typically did because I was always at practice or training for something. So that kind of was like a little reset for me. And then once it came out that trials were in 2021, I put things back into perspective and I was like, okay, I need to find a pool to train. So I went and trained with Kinsey McMahon for a little bit in Florida because their pool was open and mine was not yet. So I was able to like kind of get a jump start before my club team started back up.
You know, Kenzie's been on here as well. She's also been a very successful distance swimmer in her own right. So that sounds like it was probably a blast getting to hang out with such a like a fun,
Yes.
positive person.
Yes. So we met in Israel in 2018, and she's still one of my closest friends today. Like I talk to her every single day. So I miss having her on these open water trips, but she was always my roommate. Like we've traveled the world together. So that was kind of like the start of our close friendship. And yeah, so it was a blast to train with her in Florida and like get to meet all of her club team friends and stuff like that. So
It was I first reached out to her like after she won the 500 and the mile at NCAA's. I just like you're saying, like just such a fun, radiant, positive person,
oh,
like an
absolutely.
absolute blast to talk to.
Yes. Yes.
So, talk to me about Indiana. We haven't touched on Indiana yet. I'm wondering if you can talk about it on an academic level as well, because we're all people outside of being swimmers. And then talk about it on a swimming level and what initially brought you to Indiana and whether or not there was like other schools on your radar.
Yeah, so I as I was going through the recruiting process, I had narrowed it down, and honestly the kind of make or break thing, like the reason why I chose Indiana was mostly the team environment here is unlike any other school that I visited. I felt like I would be uplifted here the most, and the coaches very much so like understood what I wanted to accomplish in the sport of swimming and what I needed in order to accomplish it training wise. And then a plus side to things is that it's only 2.5 hours from home. So it's close to my family. I'm a very family oriented person. And so I get to go back on weekends that I choose and see my family. And then I also get the best of both worlds and get the to train with like the best, most elite athletes, some of the most elite athletes and elite coaches that there is in swimming. So I love it for that reason. I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to study when I was coming to college, so that didn't really play a huge role in how I chose. Um, because I knew that anything that I wanted to study would be anywhere, any college, really. Because I knew it was going to be something business or sports oriented. So no college program lacks that.
It's something that people talk about a lot. About there's a lot of swimming excellence on the West Coast and the East Coast, and I feel like Indiana's kind of like in the middle in its own little bubble of
Yeah,
really talented swimmers. Like Indiana on both the men and women's side have been top five at NCAA's many times,
right.
and it's just kind of off in its own bubble. And then you've got like the East Coast with like NC State, Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
It's interesting where like all of like the top schools come from, and then I mean I guess there's like Ohio State as well, up in Ohio, but
Yeah.
it's just interesting to look at the spread of talent across the country.
Yes.
So talk to me about like a typical training week for you. Like what are some distance sets that you enjoy? What are some test sets that you do consistently? Just walk me
Mhm.
through like a typical week of practice for you.
Yeah, so as far as like training schedule goes, I'm distance across the board. However, I have an IM set on Thursday afternoons that I love. Like I love the 4 a.m. It's probably one of my favorite events outside of like distance. But I love being able to train different strokes, and that was something that Indiana really understood about me is that like yes, I'm a freestyler, but if I train freestyle every single day, it is I'm going to get bored and my shoulders will start hurting. So I love that I have that little mix of things, and I do a mix of IM throughout the week, but mostly on Thursday afternoon. That's my high IM training day, and then my honest like my favorite practice of the week would be we call it challenge group. Um and it's on Wednesdays afternoons and sometimes in the morning, but it's for open water or like ultra distance swimmers. So it's me right now the group is just me and two other guys on the team, and it is sets where other people look at them and they're like, okay, at least we're not doing what Mariah's doing. Like, and for other people, they're like, I could never do this. Like, I don't know how you make it through. But like for me, that's kind of what gets me through it is the fact that like, okay, like I'm doing stuff that other people said that they can't do. And so like I'll suit up and I'll every once in a while. Right now I've been suiting it up because I'm getting close to Worlds, but and I suit up in my open water tech suit, so full legs, and it's usually something um like 2 weeks ago we did 10.5K, so 10,500. Yeah, and it started off no warm up, 10 400s, and then went into 10 3s, 10 2s, 10 1s, and then we had a 500 easy for warm down. And it's just I love seeing what my body can do on those kinds of sets. And I feel like it's a really good indicator of like one, how in shape and how ready I am for open water. And two, just like a good confidence booster. Like, okay, like I can do this. I've done stuff that other people haven't, and I'm ready to race and like show everyone what I'm capable of. So yeah.
I was gonna be like the hardest distance set I'd ever done was I was at a meet at Cal at UC Berkeley, and I met some of the guys on the team, and I asked them like, give me some sets, give me some like good distance sets you guys have, and they told me 24 150s on like 130 is what they do it, but 10 400s, 10 3, 10 2, oh my god.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where like every Tuesday afternoon is what we call red because we do a lot of the color pace. Like all of our training is based off of color and like heart rate charts. And um so Tuesday afternoon red, the set that we hate the most is the 10 3s is, and so like that's the main set for a Tuesday afternoon. And after Corey, my coach, gave me the 10 4s, 10 3s, 10 2s, 10 1s, I told him, I was like, I'm never going to complain about doing 10 300s ever again. Okay. I promise. Like, and he just started laughing because, like, I mean, you can't complain about doing 10 3s ever when you just did 10 4s, 10 3s, 10 2s, 10 1s. Like, it's just one of those things where I'm like, okay, you got me. I'm never complaining about 10 3s ever again. Like,
It just puts it into perspective of like I just
yeah.
swam a couple thousand yards. This is only like a quarter of that.
Yeah, and it was funny because after I said that, the next week for Tuesday afternoon, he gave us 10 3s, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" Like, I was
He
like, "I know
remembered.
he
He
was just
knew.
doing it." Yeah, he was just doing it to test me, I guess. But
All right, Mariah. Well, that's about everything I've got for you. But at the end of these interviews, I always give time for the person I'm talking to promote something of their choice or talk about something. Like Kenzie McMahon, I think she plugged a couple of her sponsorships, and then she also just said to be nice to people. But lately, everybody's been talking about football. Like the past, like 5 people I've interviewed have plugged their favorite football team, so that seems to be a common theme. But it just essentially is you have the floor to talk about whatever you want.
all right, well, if we're talking football, I am a Cincinnati Bengals fan. So, it's really sad times right now. Our team didn't make the playoffs. Burrow got hurt, so that was kind of upsetting. But as far as I think what Kenzie said was good. Be nice to everyone. Yeah. I mean, I have been going through a like emotion like for emotions, keeping my emotions in check right now, and so I think that that's one of my biggest life lessons that I can tell your listeners is that keep everything into perspective. Everything will work out, and everything will work out just the way that it's supposed to. I'm a true believer of everything happens for a reason. So just keep everything into perspective. And yes, please be kind to everyone. Everyone deserves to be treated the way that you would like to be treated. So yeah.
Well, Mariah, I'm hoping those positive words and that positive mindset comes back and gives you some success in Doha. Good luck at World Championships next summer. This should go up like either sometime around the time when you'll be competing there. So
Yes. So
good luck
hopefully
there.
when it
I'm
goes up,
rooting
I'll
for
be
you.
able to. Yeah, thank you. Hopefully when it goes up, I'll be able to say that I'm an Olympian. So
I'm wishing you good luck. I'm hoping you
thank
get to
you.
say that.
Thank